Yeah, you make a great point. Tesla did make a significant move and they're still holding a large chunk of Bitcoin. I believe it's over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin that still sits on their balance sheet today. And so that's healthy,
Hmm.
but I think there's some fatigue a little bit from the market because they made that move years ago. They, sold a significant percentage of their original buy shortly after doing it, and then it's just kind of sat there. And so it feels like this,
Hmm.
maybe whimsical Elon Musk driven anomaly rather than part of a real cohesive long-term strategy around the asset.
Hmm.
And what I like is seeing companies like Block, Jack Dorsey's company, where they do a recurring purchase on a regular basis. And so it's a very cash flow centric strategy. They're not employing debt in their Bitcoin acquisition strategy. They're putting, I believe it's 10% of their profits every month from their Bitcoin business unit goes into Bitcoin that they hold on the balance sheet. And so it's this gradual accumulation approach. And I think that that is what we're going to hopefully see more of in, Fortune 500 and in the S&P 500 is companies that aren't trying to really financially engineer this. They just see it as long-term diversification and some, gradual accumulation strategy like what Block is doing will make a lot of sense. But to your point,
Yeah.
people still see Jack Dorsey as, Mr. Bitcoin. And so that is one reason they can perhaps point at as to why it's okay for Block to do it and not yet for them. So we're still waiting for that psychological validation from I think a mainstream household name to do it that doesn't have a Bitcoin persona associated.
Yeah, that makes a good point. They're not ready for another Bitcoin maxi who's like a CEO of a company doing it. Doesn't exactly move the move us down the pipeline quite the same way as if it's a more traditional CEO who hadn't done it before. So that makes a lot of sense. And you know, Mahler said he's saying 100 to 200x. So if we were to believe that to be true, we would eventually expect a lot of these bigger companies to likely put it on their balance sheet as well. I remember back in the day, financial advisors were telling people personally, put 1% of your net worth into Bitcoin, then put 1 to 3, 1 to 5. Now it's like up 5 to 10. Some people are even saying 15. So if we were to head toward this future of 200x gains for Bitcoin, how would you recommend the smaller players, the Main Street businesses that you're serving at Castle, be thinking about their treasury strategies today? Is it just to get started in some way, or what would you tell them right now?
Yeah, you really nailed it. It's get started. It's really just getting off zero. That is what we come back to every single day in conversation with our current customers who we're onboarding and with with potential customers as we're talking to them and helping them think about this asset and strategies that they could take toward it. So it is really one of gradual accumulation, especially when you don't have the access to large capital markets and corporate debt markets that big behemoths like MicroStrategy do. It requires a lot more discipline, and your options for how you acquire this are perhaps a little bit more limited. And so, what we really encourage is just a gradual accumulation in companies that are cash flow positive. So, thinking about a percentage either of your gross revenue or of your Bitcoin, and that could be, 1% to 5%, somewhere in that range. Sounds small, but actually, if you start that today and you leave that running, and perhaps as you become more familiar and comfortable with the asset over 6 to 12 months, you can dial that even higher if you would like. We see that as just a way to really strongly position a small or medium business for this upgrade to better money is kind of how we think about it. And I think a good analog as well is the early days of the internet, where in the early 90s, you had companies that were trying to wrap their head around this new internet thing. And there was a story that they were able to tell themselves as to why this is a computer thing. This internet stuff, it seems like a computer thing. And we're not a computer company, and therefore we don't need to worry about it. And so we don't have to spend time figuring it out. But it turns out the internet was so transformative that it touched every segment of business. And so if you were one of the forward-thinking business owners who maybe was early to have a website and use email and start marketing online, that gave you an incredible leg up on all of your competition, even if you did nothing related to sort of technology per se or computers. And I think where we're at with Bitcoin is a very similar place. There's a lot of business owners out there who might think of Bitcoin as a Silicon Valley thing or a Wall Street thing. But really it's not just for Wall Street and it's not just for Silicon Valley. Bitcoin is for Main Street. It is for all businesses. There are 34 million small and medium businesses in the United States alone. Not many of them hold Bitcoin today. Maybe 10,000, 20,000 at most hold any Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and out of 34 million. So we are incredibly early in this movement, and the earliest to adopt it, even in a what seems like a small capacity today, could be very strongly positioned for the coming decade.